Okay, hello my friends, good morning. Salam alaikum, shalom aleichem. We will try to continue with our broadcasts from studying Quran that we began 2 broadcasts ago. And let me just remind, before we continue, that our approach is not, God forbid, that we do not come, God forbid, to teach anything. We're just studying. Every book requires a study. And even if the book is from a very high source, we as humans are not perfect, we are imperfect. And therefore, if God forbid there is something wrong that I say, something that is imperfect, associate it to my imperfection as a reader. And I, God forbid, do not come to teach. I come to study, that we study together, and to see what we can bring out for the glory of God, for the mutual glory of God. So the purpose of these studies, is like any study of any religious book, is to glorify God, to try in our human ways to glorify God and to please Him. Yes? And therefore, the audience of this broadcast is similar-minded people that this is their goal in life. Yes, and it doesn't matter if you are Jewish, or if you are Muslim, or if you are any kind of other faith, or even if you are an atheist. Yes, if your purpose is to make the will of God, then your place is here, and you will be our friend. And if God forbid not, then this podcast is not for you. Yes, but it is an attempt of an interfaith discussion out of good heart, out of good faith, and God willing, inshallah, it will bring some good. There is no agenda, there is no hidden purpose, at least not that I am aware of, and really, it's for the sake of discussion, out of respect, out of mutual respect, and so on. And again, I will not be able to repeat everything I said in the introductory, in the preliminary broadcast, that in general we believe that any person that has this kind of intention, doesn't matter which kind of religion he ascribes to, what kind of rituals or what kind of commandments he keeps, then he is making the will of God, and his share is respectable and so on. There is no, God forbid, dichotomy or ranking of who is better and so on, at least not according to what we have been taught. Not according to what we teach, what we have been taught by our teachers, including, by the way, verses from the Quran that we have seen and we will see. Okay? So this is the true spirituality. And people that do not seek true spirituality, this is something else. Okay, these are people that make problems. But let's listen to the verses and see what we will be studying today.
أولئك على هدى من ربهم وأولئك هم المفلحون إن الذين كفروا سواء عليهم أأنذرتهم أم لم تنذرهم لا يؤمنون ختم الله على قلوبهم وعلى سمعهم وعلى أبصارهم غشاوة ولهم عذاب عظيم ومن
Okay. Here, as I said, every verse here we can speak about for eternity, for generations over generations, and it will not be enough. Yes, in Hebrew we have a saying that even if all the rivers would have been ink, then it will not be enough in order to go into the depth of things that are being said. Because these are things that encompass all of humanity, through all generations of humanity until the end of days, right? And these are very complicated issues. Even though it is we just listen to 2 verses. We need to go very deeply in order to ask maybe some questions to see how complicated these issues are. So before we learned that the Quran speaks to those who believe. Believe in what? Believe in what was given to the Prophet, to Muhammad, the Prophet of Islam, but also in what was given before him. Okay, so when the Quran speaks here in these verses about faith, it's not just the Quran which stands alone by itself as a singular book, but also in what came before. Meaning in the prophets that came before. Who are the prophets that came before? It is Moses, Musa, and Ibrahim, and Yaqub, Jacob, and King David of blessed memory, Dawood, and so on. Yes, prophets of Judaism. But the Quran refers to them as Muslims. But Muslim, you need to understand, Muslim is like an honorary name. Okay? It's a name of honor. It's a name of honor to a true believer. But we see that the Islam refers to people that were clearly Jewish. Moses did not pray five prayers, and he drank alcohol, and so on and so on. Clearly, because in the Torah, part of the laws of the Torah involve the drinking of alcohol, including in the Bible. The priests, according to the work of the priest not, but the laws of the Bible involve drinking wine. Sometimes, at certain special occasions. But nevertheless, he is referred to as Muslim. Okay? So, the Quran requires to believe in what was given before Muhammad, and also in certain spiritual teachings of the Christians, the correct parts of these teachings, yes, and as well as in what was given to Muhammad. Meaning, when the Quran speaks about the believers, it's not those who say we are just following the Quran and there is nothing else. There has never been spirituality aside from Muhammad. The Quran itself warns you from this in its first pages. There is an all human universal spirituality that encompasses everything that was revealed before the Quran, including the Quran. This is a very important conclusion here. The Quran in its first pages does not come to nullify the spiritualities that came before it. Those prophets that have connected to Lord Almighty, to Allah, to God before. And this is something that many people in this generation are very lost about. You tell them, look at spirituality from before. Look at the teachings of the prophets of Judaism. They don't want to touch it because, no, this was twisted by the Jews. This was deformed by the Jews. We do not touch it. But then you ask them, show me where it is deformed. Show me what bothers you. What is here that contradicts what you believe in. Here it is prayers for Allah, for God, and here it is prayers for God. What is the argument about? Where is the point of disagreement? Yes? Unless you can tell me, this is here wrong, this is here something that is incorrect, what is the problem? And God willing, we will see that if there is any kind of confrontations, there aren't true confrontations in truth, then we will see that they are minor or non-existing. So you say, no, but Islam, that the Quran, clearly the Hadith and all sorts of places speak about that the Jews are wrong and so on. Who are these Jews that are claimed to be wrong? Are these the prophets? Are these the ones that represent the true spirituality of Israel? Or are these people that by themselves are extremely not the people to take their word for what Judaism really says? It's clear that the Quran does not say Moses is wrong. Moses has twisted the Bible. Right? So we should go to the source, to the high sources, and then see if they somehow contradict the spirituality of Muslims. And we see that this is not true. Yesterday we saw an example from a rabbi, a prominent rabbi, that said that Muhammad was a prophet. Not only was he a prophet, he says when we look at him, it is hard to distinguish whether he is a human being or an angel by himself. Written in a Jewish book. So would you say this is twisted by the Jews? It agrees, it glorifies your own prophet. Let me show you another thing. Maybe you will believe me. This is a book from my rabbi, the rabbis that I follow. You will see in this channel there is many broadcasts that I broadcast in Hebrew almost every day from this rabbi. This is the branch of Judaism that one of the branches of Judaism I ascribe to. So one of my prominent rabbis. Now, his name was Rabbi Chaim Hirschensohn. Okay? And you will see that I'm not just showing this to you. You can see in my channel for over years, I tried to broadcast the teachings of this Ra. Okay? He was a genius in Torah, a genius in Judaism. Now, he wrote many books. Some of them were history books about the relationship between the Arab nation, the honorable Arab nation, and the Jewish nation. Since the time of the Second Temple, meaning since the time of the, let's say, end of the Bible, the time of Ezra, the scribe, when the Second Temple was built. And he says remarkable things there. He says that Jews and Arabs should not have war. Jews and Arabs should cooperate with each other, keeping each other's civilization, not to intrude one to the other's culture, because we have different cultures, but we should respect each other like brothers, like cousins. And he actually believed, at the time before Israel was established, that Israel would make a great mistake if it would not collaborate with the Arabic world. He believed in collaboration with the Arabic world. By the way, he was born in Israel. He was not Ashkenazi Jew. He was from a Jewish family in Israel that lived generations over generations in Jerusalem with Arab family. So he knew very well the Arabic culture and the history. And this is one of his books, a very deep book. He explains that in general, between Jews and Arabs and Muslims should be relationships of love. This is what he taught. And he taught it to his students after him. Some of his students who are also very important people to come. He was a Zionist. I will not tell you otherwise. He was a Zionist. He believes that Jews should live in the land of Israel. Also in the Quran it is written that in the end of days Jews would return to Israel. It's written in the Quran, we will see it, inshallah. But with peace and harmony with the Muslim Arab world. And the British, when he started writing, the British mandate, they actually marked him and exiled him out from Israel. And when he was exiled out of it, he couldn't live in Israel anymore because he was prosecuted. He was exiled. They took him out because his opinions were too dangerous for them. They didn't want peace. You see, part of the Palestinian-Israeli conflict, what we call, is an inheritance from a lot of problems that were made in the region due to the involvement of the British mandate. They have designed the region to be in constant conflict. And of course, voices like this did not fit with their agenda. So they exiled Rabbi Hirschensohn, and when he left Israel, he actually went to live in Turkey of our time, meaning that he was accepted and felt comfortable within Arabic Muslim, not Arabic, but Muslim environment. Afterwards, he did leave Turkey to live in the United States. And he then lived the rest of his life in New York, in New Jersey, actually. Okay? But for me, he is a genius in religion. He is a genius in history and in Bible and in all sorts of things like this. And I find him to be really a guide of the highest source. And you can see, in this channel, I broadcast hours over hours from his teaching. Amongst, in particular, also, I have said many years before, I have broadcasted about his views about the Jewish-Arab issues, and this is very deep, hours over hours of this peaceful message that we have tried to disseminate. Okay? Now, let me show you something remarkable that he writes. He has a book that is called More la More. It's called A Teacher for the Teacher. Yes, Teachings for the Teachers, because it's a paraphrase on the name of a book of Maimonides. Yes, and the book of Maimonides is called More Nevochim, the teacher, the guide for the perplexed. So this book of him is called The Guide for the Guide. Okay? And look what he writes at the end of this book. So this is a very deep book. Most of it has to do with philosophy, something a bit about Aristotelian philosophy, a bit about more modern philosophy. But he writes here something amazing towards the end of the book, which you will see that it has to do with what we have discussed so far. So I will try to read you the Hebrew, but translate it simultaneously. So you see that what I showed you yesterday about from the Rabbi Modlinger, that actually praises Muhammad as a prophet, as an angel almost, yes, appears also in other books. It's not the only book. And there are many books, but they are hidden. They are not in the general consciousness. So people have, they have certain opinions about what the Jewish view of Islam is, which has nothing to do with the truth of the real Judaism. Yes? The high Judaism. He says, Nevi'im lagoyim natan Elokim. He clearly declares here that God has given prophets to all nations, to other nations. Meaning, he explains here in this book that prophecy is not unique only to Jews. Remarkable statement. He says, God has given prophets not just to the Jewish nation. We have prophets, blessed be God, they are also respected in all other parts of humanity as huge prophets. The Quran uplifts them to the highest degree. Moses, King David is considered a prophet in Quran. Suleiman, King Solomon of blessed memory. Yeah, Jews have contributed a lot to the world's spirituality. Blessed be God, our nation was deserving to give this contribution. But it is not uniquely just for Jews, according to Rabbi Hirschensohn, which is my teacher. Yeah, blessed be God, I allow myself to call him my teacher. Yes. אשר ישמעו את כל אלוקים מדבר אליהם אמרת כבודו המלך כל הארץ. That these exalted humans, yes, they are blessed by God with a certain special gift, that they can hear his voice, that the voice of God fills the whole earth, but we as humans, we cannot hear. At every given moment, Allah, God is speaking. But why we do not hear? Because we do not have prophets. Prophet is a gift, according to what is explained here, is a special gift that only unique, singular individuals that are genius for prophecy, they are gifted by this gift from Allah. And they can hear this voice, like a genius in science. Not every person can invent something remarkable, yeah? But there are certain people that are a genius in art, a genius in science, and so on. Yeah, God forbid to make an equation between, let's say, secular crafts, which are also very important, that are also gifts from God, to these highest degrees, yes? But nevertheless, there is some similarity, because only unique, singular, gifted individuals can do certain things, or for instance, can be huge athletes. Also, in religion and spirituality, there are unique individuals that are prophets. And this is exists in different nations, in different ways. They have different prophets, different prophecies, just like in music, we have different type of music. Every nation has its own type of music. So different nations have their own connection to God. But they hear God in their language. And what does God teach them? בנוגע לעמם, אשר אהבתם תקועה בליבם. זאת אומרת, usually, for a prophet from a given nation, the prophecies that he will receive is based on the love that this prophet has for his nation, for his ummah, and for the rest of humanity. And according to this, will be given him the prophecy. או אל עמים אחרים לפי אהבת האנושיות אשר בקרבם. Meaning that, exactly like we said, the prophecy has to do either with the love of the prophet for his own nation, and then he speaks to his nation, to his ummah. In Hebrew it's called ummah, like in Arabic. The nation, yeah, the nation of Israel, or the nation of Islam, and so on. Or that sometimes prophet speaks to the whole universe, to the whole universal humanity. And we need to discern when we read prophecy, is the prophet now speaking to the ummah? Is he speaking just for his nation? Or is he speaking for the whole of humanity? In the Bible, in the Jewish Bible, it's sometimes very clear. Yes, there are things that Moses says that are clearly just for Jews. He says, I don't know, don't eat milk and meat. Okay, clearly, this is just for Jews. Other people, this is not a law for them. Non-Jews, they can eat milk and meat, and it is completely permissible, halal for other people to eat milk and meat. Moses doesn't tell other nations what to eat. Okay, but for Jews, they eat meat. They do not eat meat and milk together. Why? This is the way God wanted for the Jewish nation. Similarly, in other religions, there is places where the prophet speaks only for his nation, but there is certain places where he speaks to all of universe, universal, to all humanity. So for instance, when the 10 commandments are given, and it is written, do not kill, do not steal, do not do all these things, yeah, respect your mother and father, and so on. This is clearly universal message. Okay? So we need to learn to distinguish when a prophet speaks to all humanity and when he speaks to specifically to his people. And aside from this, yes, there are prophets within different nations that speak to their nations or to all humanity, yes, but we need to listen. השם אלוקים קראת להם אוזן לשמוע כלימודים הנוגעים לטובת עמם והאנושיות. זאת אומרת, God has gifted them, has granted them, these prophets, with a very special ear that allows them to learn from God things that have to do with their nation and for all of humanity. A message for their nation and a message for all of humanity. And he says here something remarkable. השם אלוקים נתן להם לשון לימודים לדעת לעוד את אף דבר. נביאים כאלה נמצאים בכל עם ועם. So the Rabbi Hirschenson tells us you need to know that these kind of prophets are found in many nations, in other nations also. ולא יכחיש בזה שום בר דעת הנותן כבוד לאנושיות. And he says, who is the only one that would disagree with something like this? That he will see clearly there is a prophet here and he will say, no, this is not a prophet because he's not from my nation. Only people that do not respect humanity. It is disrespectful to think or to disregard and say, no, this is not a prophecy. You can say this is not a prophecy for me. In the sense, no, that it is a prophecy, but it is not directed for me. Because if you discern that this is now given for a nation that is not mine, it's not said to me. Like for instance, we gave an example for Judaism. Yes? If Moses says that he speaks to the people of Israel and he tells them, you're not allowed to eat meat and milk. Only somebody that something is not okay with him, he would say, now Moses was speaking to the whole of humanity. No, you can eat him. If you're not from the audience that the prophet spoke to, then you can eat meat and milk together. God forbid to say that you're not allowed or that there is something wrong with it. Simply for Jews, it is not allowed. It is non-kosher. But there is no, God forbid, any kind of criticism or that somehow people that keep these specific laws are better than others. Why? We do not know why God said this to the Jews. But that's just the way it is. And similarly, if, I don't know, Prophet of Islam speaks to his nation, we need to understand when he speaks to the nation of Islam and when he speaks universally. We have a very good example like this in the Hadith. The famous Hadith about when Muhammad salam alayhi wasalam, when he came in the night journey, came to Al-Aqsa, right? In Al-Aqsa in Jerusalem, and the Hadith tells that he went to heaven, right? And then he had a discussion with Moses about the number of prayers that Muslims should pray. And Moses recommended 5. And he said, look, we pray 3 or 2, it depends which versions of the Hadith you are reading. We will see this, inshallah, later, in future podcasts, if we will be deserving to continue. And Moses tells him, we Jews, we pray 3 prayers. And Muslims, you should consider praying 5. And really, Muhammad salam alayhi wasalam took his advice and ordered for Muslims to pray 5 prayers. So Jews pray 3, according to the way Moses has instituted it, in the Torah, in the Jewish law for Jews. But Muslims pray 5. And indeed, when Muhammad instituted the original constitution of Medina, it was an interfaith city. It was, he did not come to the Jews and tell them to change the religion. He just gave a religion for his own nation. Okay? Which was supposed originally to be parallel to the Jewish religion. Religion for Muslims and religion for Jews, according to the laws that Muhammad instituted for Muslims. Okay. So now, after this remarkable quote, you see, Jews, God forbid, it is wrong to think that Jews somehow think that there is no prophets in other nations, and God forbid to think the Jews are saying that anything against the prophecy of Muhammad. Okay? So, let us continue. So back to our verses. You know what? Let's listen to them again. Again, I said we are not in a hurry for any place, because these are so deep things and so important things. We can, God willing, take our time, yes? We are not in a hurry to any place. Even if we do 1 verse in a day, or even 1 verse in few days, it is still not enough. Let's listen again.
والذين يؤمنون بما أنزل إليك وما أنزل من قبلك وبالآخرة هم يوقنون أولئك على هدى من ربهم وأولئك هم المفلحون إن الذين كفروا سواء عليهم أأنذرتهم أم لم تنذرهم لا يؤمنون ختم الله على قلوبهم وعلى سمعهم وعلى أبصارهم غشاوة ولهم عذاب عظيم ومن
Okay. So in this verse, we have came to one of the most complicated concepts in all of religious thought. And this is the question of choice. Okay, so I will just begin by saying, first of all, that you see that the first verses were discussing those who believe. And now the Quran goes to speak about the disbelievers, the one that do not believe. Now, if we continue with what we have emphasized in the previous verses, we remember that when the Quran refers to the believers, he refers to the believers in everything, in all the prophecies that was given until Muhammad, and including but also what was given before him. So when the Quran speaks about the disbelievers, it is the ones that also disbelieve in what came before Muhammad. Meaning that if a Muslim comes and say, I believe in the Quran, but I do not believe in what King David said, or I do not believe in what Moses said, in what Musa said, this is a problem. You might be one of the disbelievers. Now, the question is, what exactly is the prophecy of Moses? What exactly is the prophecy of David? So a lot of Muslims today say, we do not know. We do not know because we do not believe in what is written in the Bible. We do not believe in what is written in the Zabur. Now again, it's a problem. Because if you are right, and you are correct, then you've done good. You are true believers. But what if you are wrong? What if not all that is written in the Jewish books is wrong? You should be more careful, because maybe this is exactly discovering that is written in the Quran. Allah put a cover in front of you. Now pay attention to what we are doing here. We, God forbid, we are afraid of this. We are afraid from this warning. We are afraid exactly from this. Not because we are afraid from Muslims. We are afraid from God. So if in the Quran there is things, not if, out of the assumptions that in the Quran, even though it is not a Jewish book, there are things that are directed prophecy, that is message from Allah. We are afraid not to read the book. We cannot say, no, we are Jewish, so we do not touch the Quran. God forbid. This is exactly this warning. So what we are doing here, we are studying. We are looking what is written. If, God forbid, we will find something that is dramatically, we think that, God forbid, this is, we cannot touch, then it will be a problem. But so far, you see, it all fits completely. There's nothing that yes, spirituality. So, do you see us not reading? No. So why Muslims do not touch the Psalms? What is in the Psalms that they are so afraid of? That they might be twisted? What? Praises to God. Hallelujah. Blessed be God. What is there that you think that has been twisted by the Jews? What? So the risk is horrible. But the benefit is huge from reading a spiritual book. Because if you find the verses of King David, that you are reading the prophecies that the Quran commands you to believe in. And if you read and you see something that you do not agree with, put it aside. Put it aside. At least you know that you have done your share. Okay? Now, this was one issue that I wanted to say about these verses, but there is a much deeper issue. The really philosophical, conceptual, theological concept. And this is the question of the non-believers. What does it mean to be a non-believer? How do we know if a person that is not us is a believer? How do we know if we are believers? Maybe we think that we believe in God, but what we have in our hearts is not correct. How do we know? Yes? A person hardly knows himself. How can he know the other? What? Because he does not pray, or because he does not seem to be believing? Maybe in his heart he is believing. I know that these concepts might be radical, but there is a very deep questions here. And these are questions that in Judaism are central to the Jewish religion. Are central to the Jewish religion, very hard questions. Because in truth, we see that the natural state of the world should have been that all of humanity should have believed in God. Should have been the natural state of affairs. Yet when we look around us, we see that many big parts of humanity do not believe. Now clearly, God is ruling the world. And this is the conclusion that the Quran comes to here, that it is not out of their choice. God has put a veil on their eyes, they cannot see. But then we come to a question. If it is God that done this, how can he punish them if it is not their choice? And this is a very complicated question in theology. Now, in Judaism, we have a whole subject of the Torah, the whole section of the Torah dedicated to this question. This subject of the Torah is called the internality of the Torah, or in its more famous name, it is called Kabbalah. Okay, Kabbalah is not mysticism. It is a part of the Torah that deals exactly with this painful question. With this very painful question. Now, first of all, this part of the Torah teaches us that only very, 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 very special human beings could come to complete adhesion with God. Aside from this, in every one and each and one of us, there is parts of the spirituality, of the real spirituality, that we cannot contain, because God is infinite. So somewhere in the boundaries of our faith, there is certain things that our soul cannot take from the goodness of God. And in this place, almost all of us, aside from the most perfect of humanity, have parts of them in which they are not believers. Even if we are sure, I pray all day, and I go to the temple or to the mosque or to the synagogue or whatever you call it to pray, and I do all the commandments of the religion and so on, when I look deep inside me, because God is infinite, there is a part of God that I cannot contain. I cannot contain his goodness. And therefore, every person within himself has a certain percentage in which he is a believer, and a certain percentage in which he has not yet attained his full correction as a religious person. And the Torah teaches us that we must look first of all and foremost into ourselves. Are we believers? Are we perfect? And only then look outside. Because outside, you see, the Quran tells you, outside is not your business. None of your business. What happens outside? Why? Because outside, this is the domain of Allah. He decides what in every section of the religion a person is deserving to connect to him. Now, our rabbis teach us that this is something that is called the heart of stone. The heart of stone is the parts of humanity that are like a stone. It's a heart that is hard part. That human beings cannot correct by themselves. It is only God who will be able to correct this. But nevertheless, we need to understand what is our relationship with this heart of stone. And this is a very complicated question. Again, I said, hours over hours and days over days and generations over generations, we can talk about this and analyze this and discuss this, because this is really the most profound question in the world. But I can tell you that the rabbis say that a person that is religious, one way to look at it is to say, I'm the chosen one. Allah has chosen me to be religious and to know about Him, and therefore I'm better than all of humanity. Another way to think about it is to say, I look at myself. I see all these wise people, all these people that are strong, that are rich, that have all the best thing in the world. But they were not deserving to come to spirituality, to come to connection with God. What am I that I'm deserving? So instead of looking around and saying, this is, all these people are wicked, all these people are disbelievers and so on, a truly spiritual person should say, like the Quran says, okay, all these people have no knowledge of spirituality, but I am fortunate. I am a fortunate one. I have been deserving for who knows what the reason. I'm not the most smart, I'm not the most clever, I'm not the most rich, I'm not the most honorable. But somehow I was chosen in this generation to know about God. This should feel in like a feeling, yes? The person that has spirituality with a sense of gratitude towards God. Because what happens outside is really his business. He decides, according to this view, who to awaken and who not in a given generation. And in Judaism, we view the spiritual war, what the Muslims call jihad. We do not view it as a corporal war. We view it as a spiritual war, in which in every generation, the people that are awakened should fight in prayer, should fight in good deeds, should fight this holy war, not in the battlefield. And also, by the way, according to these interpretations of the Bible, all the wars that are written in the Bible, they are to a certain extent encoded as spiritual wars. And the true war is the war that the believers pray that God will correct the whole world, that God will eventually come to a state that is called in the books the Gmar Tikkun, the fulfillment of all correction, in which also the heart of stone will be turned into a heart of flesh. We have a rabbi, a very famous rabbi, is called the Rabbi Nachman of Breslev. And according to the Rabbi Nachman of Breslev, his name is Breslev because in Hebrew it is, the heart of stone is called Lev Shel Even. A heart, Lev, of stone, Even. Yes? But in the future to come, it will be a heart of flesh. Lev Basar. A heart of flesh. This is the etymology of the name Breslev. The Torah, the teachings of the Rabbi Nachman of Breslev, they are prayers directed for the changing of the heart of stone into a human heart. And you see, the heart of stone makes a lot of problems to the world. All the suffering and all the pain is because these parts of humanity cannot accept the spiritual light, cannot accept the spiritual teachings. And as a result from this, the world is deprived from certain light of peace, light of goodness, light of tranquility that is destined for humanity, not just in the world to come in heaven, but it is destined also in this world. And this is what Judaism directs towards. Now, you know that the Jewish nation is considered the chosen people. For what is this, the chosen people? It is not the chosen people because they are somehow better, or because they are, have a superiority, God forbid, over other nations. There is no racism in this. The Jewish people is a group of people that were for some reason chosen by God, by Allah, to be closest to the heart of stone as possible. This is what is taught in our books, in the sense that the heart of stone is not just a specific person. This is heart of stone or this is heart of... It is a spiritual force within humanity itself, which requires the correction. And like you have in any country, you have people that are policemen, or people that are firefighters, or people that are have a certain special forces, yes? The Jewish people got the role to make the inner corrections in the heart of stone, the most hardest corrections in the heart of stone. That is why sometimes people think that the Jewish nation is problematic. It's not that the Jewish nation itself is problematic. The Jewish nation also brought out from itself huge expressions of spirituality because of this contact with the heart of stone, the close contact with the heart of stone. But the Jewish nation specifically, according to the Bible, have the role to come close to this sort of radioactive substance and try to correct it. While other nations are more surrounding it. They have also a role to help the Jewish nation do this. And as a result, a huge part of the Quran, yes, is directed to give as a surrounding way for the whole believers of the world the prayers and the support, not just the support, the whole infrastructure for the eventual correction of the heart of stone. Even when things in the Quran seem to be harsh, it is all a universal human endeavor to correct the heart of stone, to bring to the ultimate final correction of humanity, that inshallah, God willing, if we will be deserving as humans, it will be in peace, yes, in a peaceful and harmonious way and beautiful way. But this depends on humanity. It really depends on humanity how this will be done. God forbid if humanity will not be deserving, and instead of doing this in a corrected and peaceful manner and spiritual manner of peace and love and harmony and spirituality and so on, it could transcend into this world, and then it involves pain for everybody and war and all these horrible things that we see. But it does not need to be this way. If the process will be guided by the spiritual people, then it will be miracles, really. But these corrections of heart of stone is the mission of all humanity, and really the mission of all believers in humanity. To bring the world out from a cycle of pain and suffering and war and bloodshed and so on. But this needs to be in cooperation. Everybody together, the people that believe and the people that want to make God happy. The will of God. Yes? And okay, so blessed be God, blessings be to Allah, that we were deserving to make another broadcast in this series. I'm very, very happy that we are doing this, and hopefully it has some benefit. So, salam alaikum, goodbye to everybody. Thank you very much for listening. I see here that there are people listening, and thank you very much, my friends. So, goodbye, until then, hopefully we'll hear good